Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to what's considered a quote-unquote Denver Broncos podcast. Where it ranks is kind of up to you. I'm usually joined by Patrick Chiotti, but tonight I am joined by the effervescent, very sexy Zach Segars of Let's Talk Broncos and KOA. My name's Mario Batanzi. That's Zach. This is Altitude Adjustment.
Hey, feel I'm in the mood for a switch up. I hit the function, hit the rose till I hiccup. I hit the stage and leave with money that's a stick up.
Zach, let's hit the ground running here. I said on my show last week regarding this Broncos-Bengals game that they need to not only win, but it needed to be a statement game, that they needed to beat the brakes off of the Bengals, given their situation, bad offensive line, below average defense, Jake Browning at quarterback, and that's exactly what they did. What were your thoughts in this game? Like, was 28-3 enough for you, Zach? Was that enough of a beating to get you more confident in this Broncos team, or would you have liked to see a little bit more?
I think it's a little both. I think I want to see more. You know, I wish they made or took better advantage of a few of their drives. I think, you know, the one red zone possession they don't score on is definitely disappointing on multiple fronts. Sean Payton should have run it on 3rd and goal or whatever, and then 4th and goal. I don't blame Bo Nix for necessarily like trying to make a play there, but he should have just tried to run it in. Like, that's the play you should have made. I still think there was some questionable decision making. I think if you're to throw it, that's, you know, not the textbook way, like kind of high to the middle of the end zone. That's not the way you want to do it, I would argue. So fault all around. That drive wasn't perfectly executed. I think there were definitely opportunities, you know, even on the opening drive of the game where they go 3 and out and whatnot, where you want to see improvement. But this gave me a lot more confidence in the offense. You saw them, I think, trying a lot more stuff. You saw the Marvin Mims gadget stuff return, more motion to create some mismatches. And I think you saw it benefit the offense as a result. A commitment to the run game really helped out. J.K. Dobbins looks amazing. You got R.J. Harvey's best game of his early career. I think you have a lot of reason to feel optimistic about this team going forward.
Yeah, man. It feels so good to finally have another 100-yard rusher. What was it, 2022 with Latavius Murray, if I'm not mistaken, was the last time that a Broncos running back had 100 yards in a game. And honestly, Zach, like, if the game's not out of hand, really by the fourth quarter, like start of the fourth quarter, I don't think there was a single person that was watching the game that thought that the Bengals remotely stood a chance of putting together any sort of comeback. And it seemed like once Dobbins hit that 100-yard mark, Sean Payton was like, all right, great game, JK, you're done. Like, it's on to Philadelphia for you. And so really, if you extrapolate how well he was playing, Zach, I mean, if this is a close game and they need him more, I mean, he's probably rushing for 150 yards in that game. But I digress. But before we sing too many praises, and I do want to like hand out some flowers at some point, I want to talk about some of the players that fell short. And the reason I want to do this, Zach, is like, I know they won 28-3. It's fantastic. I know that the Bengals are in dire straits right now, but winning an NFL game by 25 points, regardless of the situation, is absolutely nothing to scoff at. And it's like the Broncos are in an advantageous position as a team where they can win a game by 25 points, and we can still nitpick things that need to improve. And we can do that because we want to consider this team a contender. And if you are going to be a legit contender and you want to beat Philadelphia next week, you want to beat the Chargers the next time you play them, you want to beat the Chiefs, you know, some of the better teams that are going to be on their schedule, then you have to look back and say, all right, we won by 25. You probably could have won by 30 or 35 if things go the right way. So let's delve into that a little bit before we get into the praise. First and foremost, and we're going to start with a segment, Zach, that was kind of formed by our beloved Patrick Chiotti. And in his honor, since he's not able to make it to this show, we are going to go ahead and discuss this first. reason that we wanted to do a Wattenberg watch segment, Zach, is because Pat and I wanted to believe that he would take that next step. Like the Lloyd Cushenberry step that we saw from Lloyd's third to fourth year in the league. And the biggest thing with Lloyd, the first few years of his career, everything that you heard about Cushenberry is that he was incredibly smart. He commanded the offense. He always knew where he was supposed to be. He just wasn't quite strong enough to get a push up front. And then he got a little bit stronger going into his fourth year, turned into a very good center. That was the leap I think a lot of people either expected or they really wanted to see out of Wattenberg. But man, Zach, it's gotten bad because it feels like he's going in the complete opposite direction. He feels like a big reason that the running game can't always get on track. He had 5 penalties last night as a center. He had a sequence where he had back-to-back penalties. And the reason that I want to shine a light on this isn't to just shit on Wattenberg for no reason. But again, if you want to be a competitive team, Zach, if you want to be considered a contender, this cannot be your Achilles heel. And I don't know what has to happen. I'm not even necessarily saying that Forsythe is better. I'm not going to be that guy that's going to pound the table for him to play. But man, something has to change with Wattenberg.
Yeah, or something has to change with the roster, to your point. I don't think there's a great veteran out there on the free agent market, but I guess that's probably something you can't even change at the trade deadline with the importance of the chemistry on the offensive line and everything. But this offseason, whether it's a veteran or first round draft pick, Connor Liu, I was up late running the KOA stream. So Connor Liu, I do have that right. I would watch him as a potential first round pick. I think he could be like the Graham Barton to this Broncos offense, what Graham Barton was to the Bucs offense for the Broncos. But yeah, Luke Wattenberg, I think it's been really, really rough. You highlighted the 5 penalties just to, explain how crazy that is. Jawan Taylor currently leads the league on the season with 7 total penalties. And Wattenberg had 5 in a single game last night. So on the season, he's up to 6. He only had 1 in the other 3 games to his credit, but still 5 in a single game is ridiculous. This offense would have put up more points if not for Wattenberg. And then even when he wasn't so penalized in the first 3 games, he has been comfortably the weakest link on the offensive line. And I think you look at a consistent frustration with Broncos fans where it's like, we have so much invested in the offensive line. There's so much talent on this offensive line. It's supposedly so great by all these different metrics. Why isn't the run game any good? And I think it's because you have a glaring Achilles heel in the center of it. An offensive line is like the secondary. It's not typically defined by your best player in that group. It's a weak link position. Or position group. And, right now it's being defined by Luke Wattenberg.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So it is funny. Like I brought up Lloyd Cushenberry. We see the state of the Titans. Do you maybe place a call to Tennessee and see if Lloyd Cushenberry is for sale and you just bring him back home and solidify that? Because here's the thing, man. Like
that one could work because there's the chemistry's pre-existing. I don't think you could do it for anyone else, but maybe Lloyd. I'm going to look up the contract.
I'm of the belief that if this team truly does want to be a contender, if they want to live up to the hype that all these national media pundits put on them before the season, I'd mentioned this, on the show multiple times about how I didn't like that the Broncos were the dark horse pick of all of these experts to like be a Super Bowl contender. But if they are going to get to that point, you cannot have such a glaring weakness, especially when you look at the roster top to bottom, Zach. You are only as strong as your weakest link. And right now, he is very clearly the weakest link on this team. And it's what makes it even worse is like, it's such an important position. And like you said, the rest of the line is so good. Everybody else, like Garrett Bowles is having another career year. McGlinchey has been fantastic. You already know what you're going to get out of Miners. Powers has looked better than he looked last year. Like it seems like this scheme is fitting his skill set a little bit more. But man, again, you are only as strong as your weakest link. And Wattenberg is really limiting what they can do. And the reason it's so important, like I said earlier, he feels like the main reason that the running game can't like quite get going the way it needs to. Like, yeah, J.K. Dobbins ran for 100 yards. I think Harvey tacked on like 58. So between the two running backs, they rushed for over 150 yards. Fantastic. That was against the defense that was one of the worst run defenses in the league. That needed to be like bare minimum that you hit. And really, I would have liked to see more. And again, the reason that this is important is because when you play teams like Philadelphia, when you play the Chargers again, the Chiefs, these really good swarming defenses, you have to be able to run the ball. And if you want to be a contender, you have to be able to run the ball. And Wattenberg seems like the guy right now who is limiting them from doing that. So I don't know what changes have to be made. I don't know if you trot out Forsyth out there. Like, it's not going to happen against Philadelphia. Maybe when you go to London, even though the Jets have, a really good interior defensive line, I don't know if it happens against the Giants because they have a really good interior defensive line. Maybe you throw Forsyth into the fire and you just think, well, it can't get much worse. Like, worst case scenario, it's as bad as what you're getting now. I don't know if there are any trade candidates that you're going to try and hit before the deadline. But I will say this, something has to change, because if it doesn't, you are not a real contender. And he's a huge reason why. And it's unfortunate because the rest of the team, they look ready to be that, that type of competitive team.
Yeah, I agree. I think right now, if you want to be the contender that this team was made out to be in the season, you can't have these glaring weaknesses. It is seriously limiting the offense. Even like you said, even in these moments where they look fantastic, it shows up as a glaring weakness, and it's going to absolutely, if it's showing up against this Bengals defense, it's going to show up in higher leverage moments against better opponents.
Yeah, for sure. The other guy that I wanted to discuss, and I'm going to limit my criticism here, but I need to see more out of Troy Franklin. Last year, we knew what the issue was with him. He couldn't catch the deep ball. He couldn't catch the over-the-shoulder passes. And then it just explodes in camp. He's the guy that everybody's talking about who took this massive leap, and it seemed like, he was the type of guy that was overthinking in this complicated Sean Payton offense instead of just going out there and reacting. So I think having an entire season under his belt was really what allowed him to make that leap, so that he's able to play freely. He's able to react. And early in the season, man, like, we were starting to see it. We're like, yes, that's the Troy Franklin that they drafted. That's the guy that they wanted when they traded up for him into the 4th round. That's the guy that they took over Bucky Irving. But that's another discussion for another day. And we kind of thought that the Indianapolis game was going to be his coming out party. Then he struggled against the Chargers. I think he had 2 pretty bad drops last night. And he still had a good stat line. I think he had like something, 4 catches for 40-something yards. It was 55. Great. Okay. Honestly, man, he could have had 100 yards receiving last night.
Easy.
And it's another nitpicky thing, but it's like we can't see Troy Franklin start to devolve into what he was last year. Because we saw the advanced analytics, Zach, like, he was creating more separation than almost any other wide receiver in the league, but somehow was not catching the ball, was not putting up receiving yards. I guess you just have to hope it's like, turn it around, man. Whatever you were doing in the first couple of weeks of the season, whatever you were doing in training camp, you need to get back to that, because it's going to start getting into his head again. And like, receivers are very cerebral guys. They're very superstitious. And so I think you need to have some sort of a game plan like Sean Payton does. Get him some easy ones, which he did last night, to his credit. Get his confidence up, because this also cannot continue to happen. Bo had some fantastic throws that Troy Franklin dropped. And again, it's one of these nitpicky things where if you want to be a contender, you cannot have, your wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, whatever you want to consider, and probably your Z receiver, your starting Z receiver, he can't drop passes like this.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bo could have helped him out some on one of them, but also this is not only a trend in this week, but last week you saw now it was negated by an offensive penalty, but he had a drop in the end zone against the
Yeah.
Chargers, which 3 in 2 weeks is a pretty large number, definitely concerning. And I think you have to think it might get into his head now. This is a confidence based thing. I think his confidence is rattled to an extent. I think not only do you have to get him back into it by hitting him on some of the easy ones, but I think you have to keep trying to hit him on some of these deep ones, because I think that's what'll really rebuild his confidence. You hit him on one of these deep connections, he makes the catch, and I think it's like, okay, there we go. I think he needs to catch one of these like wide open downfield ones to just like, even if it's not deep, but just like a 10-yard play in the end zone, where he's just open, kind of like that Chargers game last week. Just open, big play, ball hits you right in the hands, just catch it, and I think he can get the monkey off his back.
Yeah, 100%. Last guy that I want to talk about, and it's not really a criticism, but it's more of a question for you of what's going on. Evan Ingram was brought in to allegedly be the Joker. I know there's a lot of discourse between Bronco fans about the nature of how they want to use Evan Ingram. The Joker term is erroneous. What I want to know from you, Zach, is why is he not getting more involved in this offense, and what needs to change there? Because Ingram was supposed to be the guy that opens up the middle of the field. He was supposed to be your dynamic tight end receiving threat, and instead, Adam Troutman is outpacing him from a receiving standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's got to be health. I don't have a better explanation at this point. All training camp long, going against this very talented defense, Evan Ingram was a problem. The connection with Bo was apparent. He was a focal point of the offense, at least given everything that we were publicly allowed to see. There's a reason why multiple people in the media were saying, it's not Demaryius Thomas, but that's the kind of athlete this is reminiscent of. He looked very different than what we've seen so far. Now some of it's on Bo too. Like I saw a lot of people dogging Evan Ingram for the catch where he didn't get his foot down in bounds. Should be better about getting his feet there, but Bo's like 2 whole seconds late on that throw. Like that's less on Ingram than Bo. But it definitely hasn't been what you expected it to be. I think it's a fairly large part of it is health, because it's not only that he's not a large part of the offense, but when he does get his targets, he doesn't look that dynamic, or even when he's just running routes, he doesn't look that dynamic of a threat. And that's not at all what we were seeing in the summer.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get into the praise portion. I think that's
really
enough.
Quick.
Oh, go ahead.
I totally, but one last point I wanted to make on the Joker thing. I lost my train of thought, but RJ Harvey, that's the Joker now, actually, in this offense. You saw it some with how they were motioning him around in the backfield yesterday, the rushing threat. Sean Payton mentioned Jimmy Graham and whatever, but he also listed off a lot of running backs in that Joker role. Kamara, Pierre Thomas, Reggie Bush. That's RJ Harvey. How he gets that wide open touchdown is like, line him up as a running back, move him out wide as a wide receiver, move him back in as a running back. Defense totally blows up the communication, and it's a walk-in touchdown.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because we saw last week Bucky Irving cooked Jihad Campbell on, what was that, like a 70-yard touchdown that basically got the Bucs back into that game. That's the kind of stuff that we need to start seeing from RJ Harvey. And if I'm not mistaken,
100 yards.
He had an opportunity last night. I was at the game. We were a little bit up high, and I'm trying to, I haven't watched the film yet. I'm trying to rethink through everything, but he had an opportunity to burn him for a long reception, and I think he dropped the pass, if I'm not mistaken. So we got to get a little bit on the same page there, but the dynamic aspect is certainly there, and they have to continue tapping into that. Let's and speaking of RJ Harvey, let's give flowers to RJ Harvey. A little bit of a coming out party for him. Did it through the air, did it on the ground. 58 rush yards. How many receiving yards did he end up with? It was like 60 something. I'll pull it up right here. Four catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. The wide open touchdown that he had, over 100 all-purpose yards, found the end zone for the first time in his career. This is what Broncos country wanted to see. We all knew, Zach, that J.K. Dobbins would be the bell cow and you're riding him until the wheels fall off. But we have seen enough out of R.J. Harvey to know how dynamic he is. And he had some fantastic runs. He makes guys miss. He runs through arm tackles. He runs through contact. And I feel like they're going to start incorporating him more and more. So to the Bronco fans that were upset that R.J. Harvey wasn't getting enough touches the first few weeks of the season, it seems like they are slowly but surely going to start feeding him more and more and more.
Yeah, and I think that was so important to see. Yes, J.K. Dobbins is going to be the bell cow until the wheels fall off. But for the Chargers last year, that was like week 6, you know? And also he has been injury prone. I am praying for his good health because I would love to not only see him be healthy for the remainder of this year, but I think if he's healthy for the remainder of this year, he'll be brought back for a second year. And I would love to see that with how he's playing right now. It is sick. 100 and some rushing yards last night, 40 over expectations. So he's creating a lot of that just on his own sheer talent. Yeah, but it's going to drop off at some point. And that's why it was so great to see what you saw from RJ Harvey. Because yes, it was as a receiver, he gives you that dynamic aspect that J.K. Dobbins doesn't quite. But even as a rusher, I thought you saw some really, really promising things where, you know, getting between the tackles, making people miss in the backfield, you know, finding those hard yards, which is what he needed to develop coming out of college. It's, you know, sometimes he can want to bounce everything outside. He wants to always find the home run play. He can be overly patient, waiting for that perfect gap to develop and wind up in the backfield. Seeing that suddenness from him, that just like, you know what, I'm just going to barge into traffic, use my low center of gravity and my incredible acceleration and just pick up like 4 yards here. Seeing him do that more and more is awesome, because that's how you get RJ Harvey, like, and pass protection, of course, but that's how you get RJ Harvey to be like an every down guy, or a guy who, you know, if J.K. Dobbins starts a month or two from now looking like 60% of this version of J.K. Dobbins, it's like, damn, that sucks. But now RJ Harvey's ready to go. And I like, yes, the Bengals run defense isn't good, but it's beyond that. It's how Harvey is playing and what he's committing to do in his game that I think is so promising there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. Riley Moss, little bit of a rough start to the game. I know he gave up 2 catches for 25 yards on that first drive. I think he got bailed out by a penalty that would have been like a 30-yard completion. I think he got called for a PI at some point, but man, I think it was after the first 2 drives, Zach, he really locked in. And I think after that, like after the PI that he committed, which I think was on the second drive, the rest of the night, he gave up 1 catch for 7 yards to T. Higgins. Got matched up with Jamar Chase, but obviously Jamar Chase got shut out as well. Did Riley Moss show you enough? Because like there's been a lot of discourse on Riley Moss in Broncos country, Zach. It's like, he has been the recipient of a lot of criticism. And I thought, despite the rough start, and they were, you could tell they watched the film. They told Browning, go after 21 when he's matched up with 5 every single time. And again, it started slow, and then he ended up finishing strong, probably more of a result of the fact that Jake Browning was the quarterback. But where do you sit on which side of the Riley Moss fence do you sit?
He's one of the best number 2 cornerbacks in the league, and this debate is straight up silly. I could not believe we were having it last week. Like, yeah, he's allowed some completions over the past few weeks, I guess. But yeah, last night he gets targeted a lot, 7 times, because that is the matchup you want to go at. Yeah, they don't go at Pat Surtain and Jamar Chase. Surtain was targeted just 2 times last night. Okay, so if you're not targeting that side of the field, where are you going with the ball? A lot towards Alex Singleton in the middle. He's targeted 5 times. But otherwise, you're targeting the other side of the field in Riley Moss. And so he gets the 7 targets. He allowed the 2 receptions for 25 yards, also has the, PI. But even on those 2 completions, he allowed -1 yard after the catch, which I think yards after the catch allowed are a great indicator. Separation stats, I think, can be a little funky. Yards after catch tells you, like, is the corner right there ready to make the play on the receiver? he's exactly that. He only allowed 1 first down on the night. So really, 25 yards, 1 19-yard reception, 1 6-yard reception, and then 5 incomplete targets. And last week it was much of the same. It wasn't like last week he got torched, and so people are biased by that. Last week he got targeted 12 times, allowed just 4 receptions.
Well, and the touchdown that he gave up, I mean, he was absolutely draped on Keenan Allen.
And
I
it's a
feel like he
scramble
makes
play.
yeah, and I feel like he makes that play 7 or 8 times out of 10. It was just one of those funky deals. Like he got his arm out, just barely mistimed it. Justin Herbert made one of the most absurd throws that you will ever see, and he actually got hit in the face by Benito on that follow through. Like the chances of him completing that pass had to be like less than 2%. And so sometimes you just got to chalk it up and like tip your cap and say, there's no defense for a perfect throw and a fantastic catch. But yeah, I'm with you 100% on Riley Moss.
On the season, he entering this game, he was quarterbacks when targeting Riley Moss were 13 of 28. Now they are 15 of 35. That is way better than your average corner. That's way better. That's better than a lot of teams' number 1 corner. Like
Zach, under 50% completion percentage. That says
rare. Is rare. Like I'm not charting every single cornerback in the league. I think 50% I think is slightly above average, and it's maddening to me. He's at like 40%. He's playing really good ball. He's going to get targeted a lot because they're not going to throw at Surtain. I don't know. Oh man, it frustrates me.
And of course, speaking of Surtain, really quick, according to Next Gen Stats, allowed 1 reception for 8 yards across 13 coverage matchups with Jamar Chase, including 0 receptions on 10 matchups in man coverage. I mean, my God, I know that there were people who were a little bit worried about the game he had against Indianapolis, and obviously we had a little bit of an ankle issue. People thought that they were trying to expose him because they thought that he got beat a couple times by Quentin Johnston, even though the ball wasn't thrown in his direction, and just people watching the actual route. But man, arguably the best receiver in the league. I think he was a finalist for the Offensive Player of the Year last year. And for really, you could say the 3rd time in their career matchups, like Pat Surtain absolutely shut down Jamar Chase. Chase had no answers for him. And it just got to the point where Browning's not even looking at Jamar Chase, which is an insane thing to think about. As a backup quarterback, that's typically the kind of guy that you want to fall back on. Like that needs to be your security blanket. Is a Jamar Chase, a Justin Jefferson, a player of that caliber. And the fact that they're not even feigning interest in throwing his way says everything that you need to know about Pat Surtain, regardless of who the quarterback was.
Yeah, and it also, again, says a lot about Riley Moss that because they're not throwing his way, they're throwing Moss's way. And when they are, it's sailed over their receiver's head because the coverage is really tight. So the quarterback has to go, okay, I got to try this crazy, difficult throw. And if I'm missing, I have to miss high so it's not intercepted because the coverage is smothering. But yeah, Surtain, you mentioned the great stats for this matchup. But over the last 3, which is how many times they've matched up in their career, 54 career routes, Chase has 5 receptions for 35 yards. I mean, 4 receptions for 35 yards. That's eliminating him. So it's averaging 1 catch for 13 yards or 12 yards a game. That's amazing. I mean, you're effectively eliminating Jamar Chase from the game plan. You're making him Nate Adkins. That's a game-changing element you can bring into this matchup with the Bengals, and why Surtain's one of the most valuable defenders in the league.
Anyone else that you want to praise from Monday night's performance before we move on?
Bo Nix, I think, was awesome out there. If you look at his passing chart, which is something that's often used against him, and I think fairly to an extent, like he's not doing what, I don't know, like Justin Herbert is doing right now, but that's okay. He's early in year 2. I think if you look at most early stage quarterbacks, their passing charts look pretty similar. I'm not overly concerned about it, but you saw against this Bengals defense, it looked like a more veteran passing chart. He was using the intermediate part of the field, both in terms of depth, 10 to 19 yards, and just between the hashes, which has been, it's hard for every young quarterback to exploit that part of the field, but it's been hard for Bo Nix. And with these two high shell defenses, that's a lot of the area you want to exploit, right? There's this hard umbrella over the top of the defense. It allows this kind of soft belly in the middle. That's a hard area to work. You've got to layer things in there. He's started to, I think, show growth in that area. That was really promising. The interception was ugly, but bouncing back from that with that great 2-minute drive, like that was such a veteran looking drive to me. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Want him to be a little more aggressive running the ball, but I think this game was a step in the right direction, at least there. So love to see that. Overall, it was great. And then I'll also just add on the Sean Payton element. I think this was his best called game. He is drawing up several plays a game that give this offense a distinct advantage. Like if it's either walk-in touchdowns, potential walk-in touchdowns, or easy like explosives. They had 5 passing plays of 20 plus yards in the first half of this game. And not all of those are bombs down the field. A lot of that is, getting these receivers in advantageous positions to run after the catch. And again, that's also on Bo having some solid ball play, up and down on the ball placement, but solid ball placement for the most part. And yeah, I think that duo each had their best games of the season so far. Bo Nix, on this topic, by the way, since week 2, which sample size is already pretty small, so removing week 1's kind of ridiculous. But week 1, he was just doing crazy nonsense out there.
Yes.
Since he kind of got his head back on straight, since week 2, 9th in the NFL in EPA per play, behind right behind Patrick Mahomes. So that's nice.
Oh, Patrick Mahomes is a check down artist, Zach. Everybody knows that. But no, you're right. I'm so glad that we last night, Bo Nix looked like the Bo Nix we saw in the second half of last season. He was decisive. He was layering passes. We saw, like, I'll bring up the four passes that he had that really impressed me. I think it was a deep dig to Franklin in the middle of the field. I think it was 20, 25 air yards, maybe 30. Beautiful ball, got in on Troy Franklin quickly. That's the kind of thing that we saw last year when it seemed like Bo was really starting to figure it out. That was a fantastic throw, but also, like, as an NFL quarterback, a throw that you have to make. And he actually set his feet, delivered a great pass. The ball that he had, it was a little bit of a back shoulder to Mims down the left sideline on that 2-minute drill. Absolutely perfect pass. Put just enough on it to make sure that it got to Marvin in a hurry. Defender wasn't able to make a play on it. The touchdown pass that he threw, absolutely gorgeous. Fantastic route by Courtland Sutton. You're not going to get a ton of separation from Courtland Sutton. That's not really his bag. But you put it in the exact spot that Sutton needed in order to make a play. So it's like you put it on Sutton, even if someone's draped in coverage in that situation, he's making that catch almost every single time. And the last throw that really kind of told me, like, all right, Bo's coming back a little bit. It's starting to click. He's starting to figure it out. It was actually an incompletion. It was either on the first or second drive, but he's rolling to the right. I think it was a designed bootleg. There was a lot of pressure. Bo made a play with his legs. A quarterback rolling right, throwing right, that's an incredibly difficult throw to make and to put it in a good spot. And that was one of the balls that Troy Franklin had dropped. And it's like, when you first saw it, like before they had showed the replay, I'm like, man, it looked like Bo maybe put it out of his reach a little bit. And then they showed the replay and it just went right through Troy Franklin's hands. Again, something that I think it get cleaned up, but the crux of what we're discussing, it's like, I love that throw. That is a throw that Bo routinely started making after midway through the season last year. And it became so important to his arsenal of what he can do because he's athletic, because he can extend plays. And the majority of the time, I think Troy Franklin or whoever is the intended receiver is making that catch. But I didn't want that, to go unnoticed. That's the kind of throw that Bo Nix needs to make. And again, as a 7-time intramural flag football quarterback champion, Zach, I can tell you that rolling to your right and throwing a dart, leading a guy towards the sideline, 15, 20 yards downfield, incredibly difficult throw to make, especially with ball placement. Ball placement was perfect, and I feel like in the future, that pass is getting caught the majority of the time.
That's how you throw so many of your interceptions. So I think you definitely know that firsthand. And yeah, I agree. You saw him making some more of those throws you need to see him make. Also, once he starts being more aggressive running, it's only going to open up more of those opportunities because the defense is going to have to collapse on that, and it'll create open receivers downfield. Talking about his growth, also, I think the biggest things you wanted to see from him this year are, can you operate the offense without as many training wheels on it? And can you operate when you're under pressure or being blitzed? Those were the areas he really struggled in as a rookie. Under pressure last night, 7 of 10 for 99 yards and a touchdown. Just
perfect.
Fantastic. 135 passer rating. When blitzed, 12 of 17 for 152 and a touchdown. That's a 117.8 passer rating. Also, you saw Sean Payton barely do play action or screens last night. Like, that's a small amount of his diet here. Only 11 play action dropbacks, only 8 screen dropbacks. On non-play action plays, 22 of 31 for 238 yards, 2 touchdowns. Non-screen plays, 22 of 35 for 276, 2 touchdowns, and the 1 INT.
That's what you need to see.
Like, that's great. Yeah, you take that 1 INT out, all these numbers are like 115 and above, and you can't take that INT out. Ugly interception.
Nope, it was bad. It was really bad.
It is a 4th and goal, which does minimize it to some extent. I just wish he tucked and ran, but still, like,
100%.
He's doing the harder stuff now, operating under pressure, operating without those like easy buttons, like screens and play actions, where like the Falcons game last year, everyone was freaking out over that. He threw like 5 touchdowns on screen passes, This is some more substantial quarterbacking and a really promising for his growth.
This is the Bo Nix that we are starting to see.
But it's been the Crosby, Nix, Wilson, Nix matchups today.
We need to see Psycho Bo. All right, Zach, let's preview this Broncos-Eagles game coming up. Going into the season, the schedule comes out and everybody kind of tries to make predictions of which games they're going to win, which games they're going to lose. And by and large, this was a game that I think the vast majority of Bronco fans chalked up as a loss. Defending world champs, Vic Fangio-led defense in their house on a shorter week because they had the Monday night game. How do you see this game playing out?
Sorry, I muted myself. I think
it wouldn't be a show with you if we didn't get at least one Zach Segars mute moment.
I'm guilty for at least one. I'm good for at least one of those a show. I think it's a rough matchup for the Broncos. Now, I think they can win. This Eagles team is very vulnerable. Their offense has generally struggled. They had a great second half against the Rams and a great first half against the Buccaneers. But outside of that, they've been pretty low wattage. They scored the least points of anyone against the Dallas Cowboys defense that looks incredibly suspect. Now, I think they're an interesting test for this Broncos defense because this defense is so built to stop the pass. It's got an elite pass rush, an elite secondary, and they're just kind of good against the run. This Eagles team kind of wants to start everything with the run and will kind of only pass downfield past 5-10 yards if they have to. And so it's going to be an interesting kind of, they don't want to, they're comfortable living kind of how the Broncos want to force people to play. And I think that's going to make that a very interesting matchup on that side. On the other end of things, you got the Vic Fangio revenge game. I think Vic Fangio is a petty man. I think he will try and give Bo a hard time in this one. I think he'll probably be successful. I mean, he's maybe the best defensive disguiser in the game. And Bo is in start 22 now, 23, something like that. That's gonna, damn man, that's gonna be a hard experience. I don't know what else to say. But They're also pretty stout against the run. They've got a much better front seven than the Bengals do. So hopefully the Broncos can get the run going. This will be a much better test of that. And also a much better test of, how much has Bo Nix grown?
Yeah. Can we maybe hope that Bo Nix kind of goads Jalen Carter into spitting at him the way Dak did in week 1? Because the Jalen Carter versus Luke Wattenberg matchup, Zach, scares me to death. I mean, who was it? Was it BJ Hill from the Bengals last night who was just up in his kitchen all night and he was like the lone bright spot for that Bengals team last night. And Jalen Carter is not BJ Hill. BJ Hill's fantastic. Jalen Carter is on an entirely different stratosphere. And that is really what terrifies me, because you're saying they have to establish the run. Yeah, that's what you have to do. And how are you going to establish the run when Jalen Carter is going up against Luke Wattenberg? I mean, how do you protect him? And the thing is, like, Jalen Carter is going to get the best out of almost any center that he goes against. Like, he had his way with Creed Humphrey a few times when they played the Chiefs, who was arguably the best center in the league. We're talking about Luke Wattenberg, who was maybe the 29th or 30th best center in the league. So from a scheme standpoint, I guess you have Quinn Miners, Ben Powers, any way that you can, like, help him out. I think that we're going to see way more of J.K. Dobbins just to help with pass protection, just because it feels like the middle is going to collapse more often than not when you need to throw the ball. That's the matchup that really scares me. That, and I know saying like a running back versus a linebacker matchup is kind of silly, but Saquon Barkley versus, Strnad and Alex Singleton, that really worries me too, Zach. I mean, maybe they get Malcolm Roach back. You and I were kind of discussing that before the show. I think he's eligible to come back. Whether or not he's healthy enough to do so remains to be seen. But I think that's a huge boost to your run defense and kind of covers up the deficiencies that you're going to ultimately have from Singleton and Strnad. But they're just going to have to play better. Like, Singleton has become a little bit of a laughingstock, which, I feel bad. But man, like, you got to play better. And this needs to be the game that it starts to click for Singleton and Strnad.
Yeah. When Greenlaw's back, I think you maybe sit Singleton down, just to your point about how much of a laughingstock it's been. It's like, to the point, even last night,
takes a lot to bench a captain though, Zach.
I know I think they won't do it for that reason.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sean Payton is an old school guy. I don't know. It is Vance Joseph's decision ultimately. I'm going to be watching that one very closely. I just think, man, like, Singleton's the guy they're going at in coverage, and I think he's even worse in the run game too right now. Like, I would probably sit down Singleton before Strnad, which crazy it's gotten to that point, but I think that's where we're at. I'm worried about that matchup too, not only because of Saquon Barkley, who's a great pass catching running back, but they've also got Dallas Goedert, who's a great pass catching tight end who can also exploit those tight ends in the receiving game. They might be going at Singleton more, but Strnad's also very exploitable in that regard. So very worried about that matchup. I think you did a great job of highlighting the Jalen Carter one. I think one thing that maybe gives you some optimism is the Eagles edge group has really kind of underwhelmed this year. They've struggled to replace Josh Sweat. Jalix Hunt has been pretty underwhelming. And then they signed they just signed Zadarius Smith off the street a couple of weeks ago, and he immediately became their best edge rusher.
Right.
So you maybe feel good, providing the guard help there to Wattenberg. Except I think part of the now on the negative end of the spectrum, the Eagles have some of the best blitzing inside linebackers in the league in Zach Bond and Jahad Campbell, who are kind of these edge linebacker hybrids. They are a problem rushing up the middle. And if Jalen Carter is getting all that attention up the middle, that's going to leave windows for Campbell and Bond, who are deadly pass rushers, to fly up the middle, even on like a creeper or some sort of a delayed pressure, and light Bo up. So I think lots of J.K. Dobbins in this game, and he's going to need to be dialed in pass protection, because I think Vic Fangio,
it's going to come from a lot of different directions.
It's going to be this is a 301 advanced calculus test for Bo in this one. Like, Jesse Minter was a hard test. This is going to be another one. And so if there are opportunities downfield, and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean are a hell of a lot better than the Chargers cornerbacks.
Yeah.
But if there are those opportunities downfield in this game, you have to hit on them. It's going to be so hard to orchestrate long drives against this defense with how talented it is. If there's that explosive for a 20, 25-yard chug play, Bo has to set his feet and he has to hit that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not a lot of weaknesses in this Eagles defense, just like from a personnel standpoint. And then you stack the fact that Vic Fangio is calling the defense, like you said, he's a petty guy. You know that he is going to be throwing a lot of really unique, crazy shit at Bo. So the most important thing here, Zach, to me, you have to play a clean game. You can't get stupid penalties. You can't make stupid mistakes. Wide receivers cannot drop passes. I think they had 3 or 4 drops last night. Obviously, the 2 that we had discussed with Franklin. That can't happen. If you want to go into Philadelphia and beat this team, who is still arguably the best team in the entire league, you have to play a very clean, very disciplined game. And we haven't really seen that out of the Broncos yet. So if they want to win this game, to have a chance to win this game, they've really got to cross their T's, dot their I's, button it up, and play a really clean, disciplined game. Otherwise, man, with how explosive Barkley can be and the fact that he can take it to the house at any given time and how good of a tackling team their defense is, the game could get out of hand quickly if they're remotely as undisciplined as they had been the first couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the penalties last night, I think some of that was the crew. That officiating crew is averaging the most penalties of anyone in the league, and some of them were ridiculous. I mean, the blindside block on Paucheski was, I mean, maybe they had the rules analyst come on, and he says, "Oh, that's a good call," and Troy Aikman just laughed in the guy's face. And he was like, okay, maybe by like the letter of the law, but that's an unnecessary call. And it's so ticky tack. And there were a lot of those all night long. And that was actually below that officiating crew's average for how many flags they throw, which is maybe a better indicator of, how problematic the Broncos penalty problem was last night. I mean, the Bengals were flagged more than them. And again, this was a below average night for the officiating crew somehow, which is insane. I don't want to see another game this crew officiates because God, that was painful to watch. How many
really quick, Zach, before I forget. So I was at the game. The Broncos' very first defensive play of the game. It was an incomplete pass, but then they were given 5 yards and automatic first down. They didn't announce a penalty.
It was holding.
Did they say on
holding?
Which I figured, like, having been 5 yards, but it's just like that just kind of goes to show like how remedial this officiating crew was. Like, first penalty of the night, the crowd is fired up because it's an incomplete pass. They made a big play. Don't announce the penalty. I don't think anybody even saw a flag. They just marched the ball forward 5 yards and it's 1st and 10. And a lot of the crowd had no idea what was going on. And then the yard markers didn't even coincide, where it was like, they had said it was 3rd down. The official said it was 3rd down. The marker said it was 2nd down. It was a mess. So, yeah, I think there was definitely something to that. Thankfully, nothing got out of hand, so we're not going to blame the officiating crew. But they were just bad overall. Like, they made several penalty calls, I think, on both sides, Zach, that were completely unnecessary, that didn't need to be made.
Yeah. Now, I will say I saw some people talking about the false start. I imagine the Broncos fans watching this don't mind, but some Bengals fans be like, in what world is that a false start? Every world, you can't do the head snap. The head snap is a known trick to try to get defenses to jump. It got legislated out like 2-3 years ago.
I'm glad you clarified that, because from where we were, it absolutely looked like Jonah jumped off sides and they reacted. And I had even turned to Glenn, who I was at the game with, and I was like, I think that's a little bit of a makeup call, but we didn't see the head snap. So I'm glad that you clarified. So it was definitely on the Bengals.
Yes. Now, what Jonah did was much more apparent, but what the center, if you go back and watch the center, he's got like his head between his legs and he snaps it up like really sudden, which 2-3 years ago, the league legislated that out. You can't do that because teams were doing it to try and get people to jump. Now, I think you could debate whether or not that should be a rule. I kind of think, no, it shouldn't. Be fucking disciplined.
Be disciplined, yeah.
You should be able to move your head around, and like, that's fine. But letter of the law, and it's been this way for several years now. If you do that, and it's not, a look up, it's like you're fucking snapping your head. I shouldn't be swearing, it's going to hurt our YouTube analytics. But if you're snapping your head around, that's going to be a penalty every time. So saw some Bengals fans upset about that. Saw also Broncos fans confused about that. So that's the reason it's called that way.
Fantastic. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here, Zach?
No, I thought this was a really good game. I would just say, man, remember this go after the Eagles game. This Eagles game's kind of a scheduled loss. Like, this is an unbelievable Eagles team.
It's brutal.
It's
yeah.
A road game, Western team traveling East Coast, early game. Records for those games are always bad. On top of that, short week. So rough in a lot of regards. Also highlighted how this Eagles offense is like probably the worst matchup for this Broncos defense in the league. Like, they are physical, want to mash you. Like, it's a really bad matchup for this Broncos defense. And then defensively, they're maybe the worst matchup for the Broncos offense. Like, this could be a 20-7 game or something that has everyone feeling really low again. I wouldn't say anticipate it, but I wouldn't be surprised by it. I wouldn't let it dramatically lower your stock about this team. I think this team deserves to be, probably like 3-1, and we're lamenting the fact that they're not 4-0. And instead they got back-to-back heartbreakers, and so they're 2-2. But I think they'll climb out of this hole. You look ahead at the next like quarter of the schedule. No excuse why they shouldn't go 3-1 over those next 4 games, and that'll have you at 5-3 heading into the back 9.
Yeah, absolutely. The most important thing that I want to see from this Broncos team, like, obviously we're rooting for a win. We want to win. That would be fantastic. Almost more importantly, though, I want to see them play a good football game. I want to be competitive. It's like the Eagles are the cream of the crop. Again, they are probably the best team in the NFL right now. They're the reigning defending Super Bowl champions. You have to look good. You have to look like you belong. Honestly, a little bit like what the Bucs did, even though it's a different situation because it was in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay proved that they belonged. They lost that game ultimately by, I think it was 8 points. But man, it looked like they were dead to rights. They were getting thumped in the first half. They came on back. They made it a game. They looked competitive. That's the kind of effort that I want to see from this Broncos team. Again, yes, you hope that you win. That's best case scenario. But we have to be realistic. Like you said, this is damn near a scheduled loss. And so you have to look competitive. You can't get outclassed by the best team in the NFL if you really want to prove that you belong. If you really want to prove that you are a borderline contender. If you're not going to win, make it very competitive. Play a good game because, like you said, after this, the stretch, you have the Jets in London. The Jets are a bad football team. I think Justin Fields had like 50 pass yards in their Monday night game against the Dolphins, Zach, who, like, you could probably be their number 3 cornerback if you really wanted to. They have the Giants at home. Giants, good defense, but still a rookie quarterback. They're honoring Demaryius Thomas. They're honoring the 2015 Super Bowl team. That absolutely needs to be a win. Dallas coming to town right after that. Dallas's defense is an absolute joke, and they need to be able to win that game. You go to Houston. I know Houston looked good this past week. They played an inferior team, but like CJ Stroud, my God, you want to talk about a fall from grace. Like, this is why you don't crown quarterbacks after their rookie year, because he looks nothing like he did his rookie year, Zach. And then you have Las Vegas, and then you round out before the bye week against the Chiefs at home. There's no reason to, go on that stretch before the bye week after this Eagles game and go 5-1.
Are the Broncos underdogs in any of those games? Just predicting Vegas lines, not in our perception of the team. But are the Broncos underdogs in any of those games outside of the Eagles game?
They'll be underdogs. They'll be underdogs against the Chiefs, possibly Houston.
But it'll be close.
Houston is like a weird volatile team. That feels
they'll
like
be favored. They'll be favored against Houston. I think Houston
that'll feel like a pick'em, right? Like that spread could be even, or like Houston by 1.5 points.
But that Chiefs game,
and you're getting 2 as the
Chiefs
home team.
The same. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs game is going to be the same, where the Chiefs are maybe favored by a point and a half in that game, and the Broncos are favored by a point and a half in the Texans game.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the schedule is not that brutal. Like, they had a tough stretch. Like, going to London's always tough, and then not having a bye week after that. That's the only thing that kind of concerns me, Zach, because like the two New York teams are bad. They're really bad football teams. There's no reason to lose either of those games, especially since this Giants game is at home. They're not on that terrible MetLife field where, I think it claimed the season of Malik Neighbors. You're at home, but man, you're looking through, and we'll just run it down really quick. At Washington, we don't really know what Washington is right now. Jaden Daniels has been hurt, so it's like it's a Marcus Mariota led offense. We don't know anything about the Commanders.
Defense. I'll tell you what we know about the Commanders. Bad defense.
No pass rush.
Man, I wish we held Dan Quinn's defense to the same standard we held Sean Payton's offense. I'm just saying, because one of these is
shout out Benjamin Albright there.
I love Ben very much. He was giving me a very hard time for Justin Fields last night, so I've got a gear to grind or a sport.
But then you're at Las Vegas. Like, you have to win your division games regardless of where they are and when they happen. At home against Green Bay, we don't really know what Green Bay is like. They're incredibly volatile too. Like, this is a Green Bay team that we thought looked like one of the best teams in the league, and then lost to the Browns, and then just tied with the Cowboys because they couldn't get a stop against the Dallas offense. The Jaguars are looking like an actual football team, which is really kind of fun. Beat up on the 49ers recently. And then obviously you're at Kansas City, and then the Chargers at home. But really, Zach, after this Eagles game, aside from the game on Christmas in Kansas City, which is absolutely brutal, like, screw the schedule makers for doing this. Every other game on this schedule after that Eagles game is incredibly winnable, and is almost to the point where it's like, these are the games that you should win. And what they did last year, Zach, the reason they went to the playoffs, they won all of the games that they were supposed to win. You can make a case that they already haven't done that this year because they should have won against Indianapolis, but really weird, bizarre things happen that are almost out of their control. But going forward, you win the games that you're supposed to win, and then maybe beat one team that you're not supposed to win. Maybe you win on the road at Washington. You beat Green Bay if they're looking like a juggernaut. You somehow go into Kansas City on Christmas Day with like one of those key hallmark games. You have to win one of those, because that was exactly what they didn't do last season. That was why they were a playoff team, but not a serious contender, and why they were the 7th seed. Their biggest win last year, Zach, was against the Buccaneers in week 3. That's great. That was fantastic, but they never won a game that they weren't supposed to win. That's what has to be the difference for the remainder of this season. Keep winning the games that you should win and pull off an upset at some point.
Yeah, I will say last year when they, played division winners, which I think the Colts look likely to be, which the Chargers certainly could be, it was blowouts. Like, the Bills shelled them. The Ravens, decimated them. And it didn't look like they belonged on the same field. The teams they were close with were like the wild card teams, like the Bengals. I think that, now granted, the Colts and Chargers probably aren't on the same level as the Ravens and Bills of last year, but I think hanging with those teams, arguably you should have even won those games. Like, if you just get a little more out of Bo in that Chargers game, they win that one. If you don't completely poop the bed in the final minutes against the Chargers or against the Colts, you win that one. And we're talking about the second undefeated team in the AFC right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's right there. The schedule is really easy too. And it could get easier. Like I said, Chargers might win the division, and there's a decent chance, they aren't playing for anything in week 17. Chiefs turning things around makes that a little less likely, but it's on the table. And in that case, that week 18 game would be a shoo-in.
Yeah. Zach, go ahead and plug all of the fantastic content that you put out for the people.
Check me out over on KOA. I'm on Broncos Country tonight a whole lot. And then Let's Talk Broncos right here on this channel. You can find me every Wednesday night. We're doing our our show now, and then post games. I think I'll be back. Oh, I won't be back this post game, but hopefully after the Jets game or something soon. My post games will be back soon. I'll have a fill in hopefully this week.
Zach, last thing before we get out of here. Are you finally ready to admit that Bo Nix is better than Geno Smith?
Yes. Now, when I was saying it this offseason, it was true. And I always said, I will pull up the damn tweets. I said, right now, yes, Geno Smith's proven a lot more. He is the better quarterback. That could very easily change this year. And I would say it's definitely changed this year. I think that's more to do with Geno than Bo. Geno has cratered. He is suddenly, I was looking up Bo stats, so I just have this handy. Geno's 32nd out of like 36 qualifying quarterbacks in EPA per dropback right now.
That's not very good for a top 10 quarterback. Zach.
No, he's terrible. He is god awful. And I was wrong on top 10. Once I mapped it out, I was like, oh no, I think he's more like 14th. But I had him at like 14th, Bo at 18th. If I probably ranked him now, I'd have Geno at like 20 some and Bo at like 15th or so. I want to see him build on this Bengals game. If he does like this against not even to this extent, but just like looking cleaner, using all levels of the field,
and stop turning the ball over.
Yeah, that's the one thing he needs to clean up. But if he does that,
stop making dumb decisions and turning the ball over. That's it. Play a clean game. Yeah.
Okay, but I'll own it. I was wrong.
And you know what? That's what I love and respect about you, Zach. You have hot takes, and that's fine. That's the nature of the business. But you're not like so many of the deplorables that are in this line of work where they will just stick to their guns no matter how wrong they are, no matter how many times they are wrong. There was an individual who was upset that the Broncos drafted Pat Surtain over Justin Fields. And to this day, that individual still defends their standpoint and thinks that they still did not make the right decision taking Pat Surtain over Justin Fields. So what we love and appreciate about Zach is even though he may say some out-of-pocket shit sometimes, if he ends up being wrong, he owns it like a man and doesn't double down like a coward. Before we get out of here, Sean, Coach Peyton, how did we do today?
Gosh, your own little internet shows are driving me crazy.
All right, well, we're trying our best. That's Zach Segars. I'm Mario Batanzi. This has been Altitude Adjustment, and I will talk to y'all next week. Love you. Bye-bye.
Hey, feel I'm in the mood for a switch up. I hit the function, hit the rose till I hiccup. I hit the stage and leave with money.